Thank you, as always. I'll reach over. All right, thank everybody, and then I am very grateful to our Music City Center for being here, the Convention Center, J60271, the last shall not be least, and our last session for the evening. Thank everybody for sticking around, and with this, I will ask Mr. Starks to introduce his team and take us away to the last presentation of the evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Charles Starks with the Music City Center, and to my right, Heidi Runyon, our Director of Finance. And so thank y'all very much for sticking around for us toward the end of the day. We've left with each one of you just a quick little handout, kind of run through some of our numbers for the year and a few of the events and things that we're doing. So in a little bit of the interest of time, I'll just skip through a few of those pages, and certainly unless you have any questions before we get to the end. I would like to start on page 3 and talk a little bit about what we see in the future bookings of the Music City Center. Right now, we have firm events out through 2026 and prospect events that we're currently working on and looking at out as far as 2034. So I think the good thing for us is the pipeline continues to be very full, and as we look out into the future, our future continues to be very bright with the size groups and demand that we have. One of the groups I'd like to mention under the future bookings is that very first one, PCMA's 2018 Convening Leaders. You're going to hear an awful lot more about this in the coming months. We're going to have the opportunity in January to host about 5,000 people, of which about 2,400 of them are meeting planners. So that is our customers coming nationwide, well actually worldwide. We'll be in Nashville for a week the first part of January and give us a chance to show off the city, what we have. A lot of these folks, we'll find out by the time the actual registration is over, but approximately about 60% of them will have never been here in the last 15 years. So a real chance to show off our city and have an opportunity to book, we think, certainly a lot of future business as we move forward. Page 4, just briefly on social responsibility, which we take very seriously at the Music City Center, kind of where our DBE participation numbers ended up for fiscal year 2016 and what we're tracking through second quarter of 2017. And then on sustainability, just a few highlights. The one that certainly a lot to talk about is our rainwater collection tank. As you can see, about 50% of our water usage at the Music City Center each day does come from rainwater. We collect off the roofs of the facility, and then a little bit more there on solar panels. And then this past year, we were able to install 9 new electric car charging stations. So we have those distributed throughout the garage on all 3 levels. Then talk a little bit about, on the next page, community involvement. Some of the things that we're most proud of is we've had a partnership with Hunters Lane High School since the academies were created. Now, academies just celebrated their 10th year in metro schools. Well, it started actually at the Nashville Convention Center, and then we've come over to the Music City Center, and then what we do with Hunters Lane. We were very fortunate just at the most recent Academies of Nashville Awards that are put on by the Nashville Chamber and Metro Schools to be awarded Partner of the Year in the Hospitality and Tourism Academies for all the schools here in Nashville, which we're very proud of. A little bit about part of that relationship also with Metro is that we now have hosted every year the 9th grade career fair. And so I share with Dr. Joseph when he first came on board was that, one day a year I get to have the largest school in Nashville. This past year was about 6,900 ninth graders for a day. So if y'all ever want to come out and help, I'll be happy to get you the date, and you can come out and see our youth in action. A little bit on the Nashville Rescue Mission, which has been a partner and certainly a very close neighbor of us since moving to the Music City Center, and a little bit of what we've done on food donations for them. That continues and ongoing. We don't want to see any food going to waste. And so anytime that we have the opportunity to send, whether it come off of banquet functions, whether it be box lunches, whatever it be, that we're donating to the rescue mission. There are some cases where we have bulk product left over that a customer would have provided. In that case, most of that goes right to Second Harvest. So we do some contributions there, as you can see. And then just a little bit on the number of nonprofits that we've had in the building since opening. 219 since we opened in 2013. So very proud of the relationship that we've established with a number of local nonprofits that have events there, and I'm sure most of y'all have been there at some time or another for one of the many nonprofit events that we host. You know, we have a couple more this week that are coming through. On page 6, just real briefly on the expansion or kind of enhancements that you've read about or heard about, and I know many of y'all I've talked with and met with concerning it. So we're spending about $20 million that's under construction right now. The big focus of that is at 8th Avenue in Demonbreun. When we were building the Music City Center, no one could really foresee what all was going to happen on 8th Avenue. I think no one saw the number of hotel rooms coming in, what the demand was going to be on that side. So one of the things that we were sorely lacking on that side of the building was a food and beverage outlet. So we are constructing what we're calling a market and cafe that will open later this year. As part of that, what was an outdoor terrace space. And we're also adding about 5,000 square feet of additional pre-function or concourse space. So where you'd see as an entryway as you come into the exhibit halls. In addition, at the Davidson Ballroom, which is between 5th and 6th on Korean Veterans Boulevard, we're taking what was an outdoor terrace and we're incorporating that into indoor space or additional pre-function space of about 2,000 square feet. And then we're doing a few other enhancements along the way. Some of those are security related. Some of those have to do with some pedestrian access that we're looking at and a few HVAC controls. And as we just heard the Sports Authority talk about, we're also adding 2 nursing mothers' rooms in the Music City Center. Pages 7 and 8, and again, certainly haven't taken any question on those. That's the budget that the Convention Center Authority has approved for fiscal year 18. So you can see where I'll just kind of give you a pie chart of how our revenues break down. Really no change in that from what you've seen the previous few years. And then on page 8, operational expenses, much in the same manner of what we're going to see pretty historically, what we've seen historically and what we'll continue to see as we kind of move forward into the future. Page 9, a little bit on tax collections. And then finishing up on the total revenues and expense side on page 10. So for fiscal 18, what we see in revenues that are coming into the building, along with the dedicated streams of revenue that we receive, along with the major expense category lines that we see going out. And right now for fiscal year 18, projecting a surplus of a little over $33 million from those streams of revenues, along with the expenses associated with those. Page 11, one of the things that we provide for the board and continually work on, and Heidi and her team do a wonderful job with, is really we're always in a 5-year kind of moving plan, excuse me, as we look out to the future and what our commitments may be. So as you look out over the next 5 years on just debt service and hotel commitments we've made, and kind of see that number is in that 52 million-ish range that each year we've got for the foreseeable future. That doesn't change for still a number of years. Again, we will celebrate 4 years open at the end of this month. So if you think about this journey that it took to get here, now 4 years, which actually has kind of flown by pretty quickly. But with the bonds and the commitments to the hotels, we have a number of years to move forward there. Page 12, would also want to share with you what our future capital commitments look like. Currently, we've got a little over almost $110 million in future commitments that we see on the horizon. Some of that is in capital that we'll go to our board with over the next 5 years. Each of those 5 years, again, this is a 5-year look ahead. A couple of those commitments the board has already approved, such as the 5th and Broadway parking garage and also the Market and Davidson expansion that we've just talked about. Kind of see where some of our commitments look going out to the forward as we see them currently over the next 5 years. And I think with that, Mr. Chairman, try to at least be as brief as I could be, and certainly any questions anyone may have for us. Thank you.
Well, first I want to thank you for the presentation and summarizing the material, and I'm grateful. And Council Lady Johnson.
Thank you. I have just 2 questions here.
Yes,
on page 4, where you give the percentage on the DBE participation.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your DBE participation goal, and does this percentage meet or exceed the goal that you had?
Okay. Our goal that was established by the board back during construction of the Music City Center and then has come over with the operations side as well was to not be less than 20% DBE on the project. We exceeded that on construction and certainly are exceeding that on operations. So the board set goal is not less than 20%.
And on the schools, no, the youth employment, the annual 12-week paid internship for a college student majoring in hospitality. With the Opportunity Now portal being for students in M&PS or within the city, is there an opportunity to add an internship for students like who come from the hospitality programs at Antioch High School and Glencliff High School?
And certainly Hunters Lane, our partner high school.
Yes.
So yes, ma'am. Well, the internship certainly is an opportunity, and we've been doing that. That was something we believed in from opening of the building 4 years ago. So the college internship, this will be our, well, the way the cycle of the school year, when we missed the first year because we were just opening as the year had already ended in schools. So this will be our third year having a college intern selected, and that's a competitive process where we ask interns to submit resumes and letters of interest. And then we take a look, and that is a requirement of a 4-year institution, is what we've established for that now. When it looks at the high school level, and whether it be Antioch or Glencliff or certainly in the other great schools that are doing Hunters Lane, that are doing culinary in particular, and some of the hospitality classes, that's part of what is we've looked at the youth employment line that's in here as well. You know, the mayor's talked about Opportunity Now. And so we certainly subscribe to that and already have a number of individuals that are in high school or in those early years of work that are already on our team, and we continue to solicit and try to recruit folks into that area. So we certainly see that we're a part of that. You know, maybe not, we're a little part of that to get to 10,000 anyway, but yes, we absolutely do that. And our team, Council Lady, is out speaking with classes, in particular at Hunters Lane, which again is the one that we're partnered with directly. But we've also done a lot of work at Antioch with their culinary program. And so as we look at those, every time we send a chef out, or whether it's me going out or Heidi goes and teaches one of their finance classes, we're certainly talking about opportunities not only at the Music City Center, but opportunities in hospitality as a whole. And, you know, one of the things I can absolutely talk to them about is being a native Nashvilleian and started cutting grass at a hotel at 14 while I was working at McGavock High School. So, I mean, I give them some of the opportunities, but we do try to do it every time talking with high school kids.
That is very exciting. When the college student majoring in hospitality, are you also including Nashville State, since we have the Randy Rayburn culinary hospitality program over at the Southeast campus?
Well, the college internship is only for a 4-year program.
Okay.
So what we're looking at for Randy Rayburn School of Culinary Arts out at Nashville State, a number of the folks that are in our youth employment actually are coming through Nashville State. We have a number of them, and we also use a number of students in the culinary arts program at Nashville State for almost like an on-call type culinary staff. So if we have a large event, we go out there and talk to them, and our chef's actually on the board out there for the culinary school, and we go out and talk to them about, hey, we may have an event on Saturday night, and we could use 20 additional students. And so we've used a number of them as a part-time basis as well. So we're certainly talking to them.
Are the internships paid or non-paid?
Are paid.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Seeing no one else in the queue for the moment, I'd love to ask a couple of questions myself. On
Yes, sir.
page 12, the $39,500,000 for Fifth and Broadway parking garage, that is an increase over the number that was presented to the council.
No, sir, that's the same. The garage is broken down. It was $35.5 million for the parking garage and $4 million that went toward the hotel space that had to be retrofitted. So the total that was in that request was 39.5, but 35.5 to the garage and $4 million for the meeting space, which is all part of the same construction.
Would you go over the $4 million? Because the $35 million was presented.
Well, and then also in the MOU that we have with the developers is the $4 million for the hotel space at the Renaissance. As you will recall, or some of you may recall, the city went into an agreement with the Renaissance Hotel that said that for 15 years, the Renaissance Hotel had access to the existing meeting space that we vacated whenever the Music City Center opened. And in turn, for during this time, during this construction, in order to get the agreement done with Spectrum Emory and Oliver McMillan, that in turn, we would make, the Convention Center Authority would make a $4 million investment into that meeting space that has to be disturbed during the construction. And that $4 million would be allocated out toward that. So our total spend would be 39.5, with 35.5 of it going to the garage, and then $4 million to what I'm calling the hotel space.
Because the presentation was a $25 million TIF and a $35.5 million parking garage.
Yes, sir. And then $4 million for the hotel. We'd be happy to share, send the MOU back if you'd like, sir.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I followed this pretty closely, and
Yeah.
this is the first that I've heard it. Now, of course, it was passed in the last council.
Yeah, right.
Another
Yes, sir.
question, on page 10, the bond administrative cost of $175,000. How is that in addition to the bond payment?
Well, in addition to the bonds, you certainly have to have bond legal counsel that's involved and folks that are
You would
working.
do that when you issued it.
You have the ongoing costs. We have Build America bonds, or 2 of the series, so certainly we're working on what the interest subsidy that comes back from the federal government each year. And so as you look at the bond administrative costs there, and then also we utilize Metro Treasury to be part of that to help administer those bonds for us. So our bond administrative cost is the services that between legal and bond costs that go each year toward the bonds, and then making sure that the subsidies that come back on the Build America bonds in turn are done and received back.
And what's the length of the bonds?
30 years.
So it's going to be $175,000 a year for the next 30 years?
It's going to be in that range, yes, sir.
Okay. And then the Omni Hotel payment, how long will that go for?
It's a 20-year payment when the hotel opened in October of 13, and has some escalation on it that works out, so the final payment's in 2032.
So we have approximately another $210 million in cash that we'll be paying the Omni?
That's a bit close, yes, sir, off the top of my head.
Okay, in cash over the next years?
That the Convention Center Authority will be paying to them, yes, sir.
That the Convention Center
Yeah.
is paying. And then another question, and I very much admire your presentation, is the budget book that you have in front of you, transfer on J6027-1, transfers from other funds and units, $2,968,700.
Yes, sir.
I just don't understand where that number comes from.
That number is just simply the difference between revenues and expenses. So for our budget this next year, we're currently projecting about a $2,968,700 operating deficit, which is what we would anticipate at this stage of the budget process.
Okay.
And that $2,968,000 comes out of the surplus revenues of the Convention Center Authority.
Okay. So, so that's the deficit
Yes, sir.
on your operating business as a business separate from the tax revenue.
That'd be correct, yes, sir.
Okay. So
As we see it this time, the first 3 years, the center's actually turned a profit, which is certainly way abnormal compared to most convention centers in the country, but in 18 we see it.
then not this year.
We don't see that in fiscal 18 at this time, no, sir.
So this year, the building operating as a building, you expect to lose $2,900,000.
That's correct, yes, sir.
But you have close to $100 million in tax revenue.
Yeah, we're currently showing about a $33 million surplus for fiscal 18.
To get your $33 million surplus, right?
Right.
And then the costing of the building in this $35 million worth of cost, that does not include debt service or the payment to the Omni.
That's correct.
That is not. So
That's outlined, yeah, on page
okay.
10 there.
So without debt service or payment to the Omni, the building this year is forecast to lose a little bit of money after wonderfully making money in the last several years.
The building in 17 is now forecast to actually make money for 17, and 18 is what we see as an operating loss right now.
For 18,
18,
you know, see
fiscal
as an
18.
operating loss. Well, should we, I mean, usually things wander into an operating loss after a while. Why is that? Why have an operating loss now after early success?
Well, it's certainly in our business, and a lot of it's going to depend on the mix of groups and what size groups are coming and when they may be coming in and out of the building. But also in fiscal 18, the group I alluded to earlier, PCMA, that will be in the building is a marketing opportunity for us. So we're certainly spending some money to have 2,400 customers come to town that we will do on that event. And as we look forward right now, if we continue to see the short-term booking window that we've seen for the last 3 years, we expect that'll be a different picture come the end of fiscal 18. I mean, if you'll look at fiscal 17, we said we'd have a $3.2 million operating loss. And in fiscal year 16, we said we have a $4 million operating loss at the budget, and both those years will turn a profit. So we look at fiscal 18, we'll see where it is, but right now, the magic ball looks like about 2.9.
Okay. Oh, okay. So it could be very conservative estimating on your part, that in fact you could turn, the previous 2 years you forecast a loss but turned a profit.
It's when the budget process is done for our board, which takes place in January, is presented to the board in February and March. This is how the business looks to us at that time each year.
Okay.
So we absolutely take a very conservative approach, as we've done even in the pre-funding of the building and the construction of the building all the way through the operations. Okay. Yes, sir.
So twice before you forecast a loss but turned a profit. You're forecasting a loss now, but that doesn't mean that you won't turn a profit.
Means we're going to try our best not to. Yeah, is to turn a profit, absolutely.
Okay. On the pure building operation, separate
Yes,
from
sir.
debt service and the payment to the Omni, which is about $52 million.
That's
between
correct.
those two. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then your tax collections give you an additional $30 million surplus.
On the dedicated sources of revenue, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, and I want to thank you for this clear presentation. It's very complicated math, and I'm grateful to the professionalism and clarity of that. And seeing no further, no one else in the queue, unless there's anybody else you have after several hours. I want to thank everybody for being here very much, and I want to thank again the Convention Center for patiently waiting to the end of this. Thank you. With this,
pleasure.
Let's declare tonight's meeting adjourned until tomorrow.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.